Viewer discretion is advised.
Larry Tannenbaum is a Canadian businessman who is the son of a former steel magnate and grew a successful construction and engineering firm that basically built all of Toronto and other projects throughout the world. He also owns the Maple Leafs, another team that hasn't built him a winner yet. See what I did there? Top 81 points and is nuts on them in 2006. You've been average at best, kind of like Vince Carter's interesting but weird career. You've been successful recently, however, just like the rest of the East, until he retires, you're LeBron's bitch. To all of the residents of Toronto, it has been a fun 13 years being your overlord and ensuring you cannot function without my very presence in your city. Thank you for laying down like a cheap prostitute during the playoffs and letting me roll through the streets of your town like the US did in Baghdad. Thankfully, all of that free healthcare will allow you to heal your scars now that I have gone out west. Signed, LeBron James. 1996, the Knicks were a team that missed their window and the Raptors were in their first season. Patrick Ewing had 23 points and 9 boards, John Starks added 19, and the late Anthony Mason shoved people around the paint like he was Techno Viking. AC Earl scored 25 points for the Raptors on 9 for 21 shooting, accounting for 31% of his team's offense. The Raptors were only able to dress 8 players either due to injury or some were taken out back to face a firing squad. Jurassic Park has nothing on the Raptor, a fierce-looking dinosaur that trolled Russell Westbrook and looks like he would beat the living snot out of Barney. Well, pretty much anyone looks like they could beat the snot out of Barney. The Raptor celebrated LeBron leaving for the West the hardest, as being his personal plush toy for the last 8 years had to hurt. The Scotia, home of the Raptors and the Leafs. The building was previously named the Air Canada Centre until last year when their owner sold the name. In 2014, they installed some statues, none of which are basketball players. Which Raptor would you make a statue of? Vince Carter? I guess it's Vince Carter, right? If you're gonna have someone woo a superstar to your team, whatever you do, don't let it be Drake. In 2014, at a concert that KD was attending, Drake asked the crowd to show their support for him coming to the Raptors. Apparently, this is somehow against the NBA rules and a $25,000 fine was levied. And finally, your defending champs, the Toronto Raptors. Oh, did you think climbing the mountain and ending all those years of frustration of being a lowly expansion team that never got to a finals would exempt you from this list? First of all, you had to have your team owner shipped out west to live out his Hollywood aspirations. Then you had to be gifted the best player in the NBA, and as soon as he bookended his stint with awkward laughs, he was out of the north faster than a dollar bill about to contract chlamydia in a stripper's G-string. Don't forget that you drafted Andrea Bargnani with the #1 overall pick after contracting European fever. Somehow, after losing Kawhi, you were having a decent season, but you're probably the Greek Freak's new piece of sardine oil-covered meat. You better hope he leaves too.
The Raptor, Toronto. The Raptor is proof that sometimes all you need to make a great mascot is simple. This bastard has the body of a normal person but has a dinosaur head with teeth and it just works. Imagine that. In all honesty, Chris Bosh or DeMar DeRozan could also be the mascot for the Raptors. Rating, 9 out of 10. Toronto Raptors, Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry was never as good as Kawhi Leonard, but Kawhi only stayed in Toronto 1 year. He wasn't as good as Vince Carter at his peak in 2001, but Vince declined and eventually left the franchise in shame. He probably wasn't as good as peak Chris Bosh, but Bosh never won anything and left after 7 years. Hell, it's arguable that he wasn't even as good as his former teammate DeMar DeRozan, but DeRozan left. Lowry gets the nod here thanks to his longevity. He stuck around for 9 seasons, making 6 All-Star games, an All-NBA team, and most importantly, played a key role on the 2019 title team. When you add it all together, no player has a more complete resume than Lowry while wearing a Raptors uniform. Plus, he has a really thick ass. Toronto Raptors, Rafael Arroyo. I promise I don't have anything against foreigners, but Arroyo was a complete complete scrub that somehow tricked the Raptors into taking him 8th overall in 2004. He was a truly terrible player. He stood at a towering 6'11", 280 pounds, and yet he finished his stint with Toronto with more shot attempts than points. He wasn't a good rebounder, he couldn't pass, and he didn't block any shots. He lasted just 2 years in Toronto before they cut bait. He hung on for one more shit year in Utah before being out of the NBA entirely. Toronto Raptors getting swept in the 2018 Eastern Conference semifinals after winning 59 games. All you need to know about how the 2018 Raptors season went was they ran into LeBron James in the second round and they did not have a good time. They lost at the buzzer in game 1, got blown out in game 2, and then LeBron had his infamous off the backboard game-winning shot in game 3 that effectively ended the series before a Cleveland blowout win in game 4. This was the last straw for DeRozan in Toronto as the Raptors traded for Kawhi Leonard that offseason. This trade, mixed with LeBron going to the West and some injuries by the Warriors, resulted in the Raptors winning the title in 2019. But that doesn't change the fact that they got their ass kicked in 2018 pretty badly. Toronto Raptors, Scotty Barnes. Barnes was expected to make a leap after winning Rookie of the Year in 2022, and instead he just stayed basically the same, having a disappointing sophomore season, which ended with the Raptors missing the playoffs. So Barnes might not be overpaid per se, he's not even a bad player, but at this point in time, I think it's fair to expect a little bit more out. Toronto Raptors, Kawhi Leonard, 2019. This one really wasn't that difficult. Kawhi was the clear-cut best player on the Raptors' only championship in franchise history, and also had a all-time great title run, averaging 31 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists on great efficiency. His best moment, in my opinion, wasn't the famous game-winning buzzer beater in Game 7 versus Philly, but Game 5 versus the Bucks on the road in a series tied 2-2, when he dropped 35 points, 7 rebounds, and 9 assists, including having a massive fourth quarter to seal the deal in a series that the Raptors would go on to win in 6. And he did all of this saying just 5 words all postseason. Incredible. Toronto Raptors, Rafael Araujo. Good old Haffy. I talked about him in my last video. Not only is he the biggest draft bust in the history of the Raptors, you're welcome, Bargnani. He is simply the worst player to ever put on a Raptors uniform that got an extended amount of chances. He appeared in 111 games across 2 seasons with the Raptors before they gave up on the 8th overall pick because, again, he was terrible at literally everything besides being a very, very large human being. People like my ex-wife say that size doesn't matter, but it's obvious that size does matter. And not necessarily in terms of length, but girth. There are some people who think that girth is more satisfying than length. At least that's what I've heard. Wait, am I still talking about basketball? Toronto Raptors. Hey, remember when the Raptors won the NBA title not even 5 years ago? Me neither. That's because the team's entire relevance depended on Kawhi Leonard staying, and once he pieced out in free agency, the Raptors went back to being forgotten. Had Kawhi stayed, the Raptors might have had another ring or two now, but I guess Canada isn't all that it's cracked up to be. Drake sucks and LeBron still owns you.